Your life is about to change. Hey guys, we're making a new series of videos in which we cover what it's like to go from your freshman year into your upper years. What you might not know is it's very, very different and there's a bunch of things you guys gotta look out for. But here's our list. Join us for the discussion after. Going from dorming to signing your first lease. Yay! So the first thing you're gonna wanna look out for is how you choose your roommates. Roommates can really make or break your experience, right? These are people that you're gonna wake up to. These are people you're gonna share common space with. Make sure you pick people who you really like and enjoy and whose habits that you have seen, whether it be from hygiene, things like how often they go to the washroom.
Number 2, the next thing you want to look for is you got to pick between renting from an individual landlord or a property management company. The reason why I say that is because there is a difference between responsiveness when it comes to repairs and maintenance. Normally, property management companies have their designated electrician, plumbers, so whenever there is an issue that arises, they usually respond more promptly. Whereas for individual landlords, they may skimp out, do some sketchy things. Remember, you are their target, and a lot of the times students do encounter sketchy landlords, so beware of that.
All right, number 3, let's get into the property itself. So the first thing you're going to want to look for is the location and proximity to where you are at in campus. Remember that if you have 4 seasons like we do here in Canada, that winter is really, really bad if you live far away from campus. The other thing you're going to want to look out for is how many different bus routes there are that go to your place, because you'll never know when you need to use public transportation, especially if you do not have a car.
Next thing you want to pay attention, of course, is money related. Rent. So a lot of the places that you rent from require first and last month's rent. So beware of that and make sure that you have sufficient funds to pay for those upfront. And remember, a lot of people illegally ask students to pay for key deposits. A lot of the places might potentially ask you to give them a key deposit of a few $100s. Mm-hmm. And remember that in Ontario, that is illegal. But regardless of the location that you're in, you should always look into the fine prints and the terms and conditions in your lease to make sure you study it well before you sign anything.
Next is amenities. So this is where you really want to get the best bang for your buck, especially if you choose to rent more of a high-rise apartment style rather than splitting rooms in a house. You want to know if they have ensuite laundry, which is really, really clutch. You want to know if they have a gym. That way you're not paying for an extra gym membership. Other things you will want to look for in terms of amenities. Do you guys each have your own washroom in each unit? And how much common space do you guys have? Because community is so massive when you're living off campus. So look out for the different amenities that are actually part of the property that you intend on leasing.
And then the next thing is whether the property is well maintained. So always make sure you do a site visit before you rent anything. Do not rent online, and make sure you check very detailedly whether or not there are moles, there are leaks.
The last thing you're going to want to look out for in our list when it comes to leasing your own place for the very first time is remember that your bills are not going to be rolled into one like it was for university dorming. You'll note that in a lot of residences, you'll have your university tuition as well as your living expenses as well as your meal plan all rolled into more or less one bill. It's not the same thing when you lease your own place. You're going to have a separate internet bill. You're going to have a separate heating bill. You might have a separate water bill. So make sure whoever is fronting the payment up front for the utilities bill, that the people in the roommate have a very, very quick way in terms of paying that person back. Try to automate it. Use Cash App, use Venmo, do what it takes, or use basic e-transfers. Okay, so now you've reached the part where we talk a lot more in depth about these things, and we're not going to cover all of them, but we'll cover the big ones. So number 1 is roommates. Like we said on the list, they make or break an experience. These are people you will want to come home to. These are the people you're going to live with for the next 3 to 4, 5, maybe even 5 years. And these people are really lifelong friends. My roommates, 2 of them became my groomsmen during our wedding.
Yeah, same here. They're my bridesmaids and maid of honor.
Right. So these are the people that you keep, ideally that you keep for life. And they can really elevate a university experience. When you're in your downtimes, when you're talking about stress, when you need to have hard conversations, or when you want to have fun conversations, these are people you want to feel safe with.
Yeah, and we would highly encourage you to really live with your friends. A lot of common struggles when you're transitioning from first to second year is the experience of isolation, and that is not healthy. Living alone is not good for you, and we would highly recommend communal living.
There's a lot of different university stats. You can do your own research that people have a much, much higher tendency to struggle with mental health related issues when they're living in isolation. So please do live with people that you know care about you and people that you want to care for as well. This is a very, very non-academic hack, but it is definitely a big hack, and it can definitely, you'll thank us.
Hopefully. Oh yeah, Jay, do you want to talk about the trilemma?
Okay, so this, I wish I learned this in first year. When it comes to renting, your trilemma is cheap, clean, and close. These are what we call the 3 C's. If it's cheap and it's clean, it probably isn't close. If it's clean and it's close, it probably isn't cheap. And if it's close and it's cheap, it probably isn't clean. The closer you live to campus, the more rent on average is going to go up higher, because landlords know that universities drive up the price and that there is a convenience and value factor when you live walking distance from campus. So if you're willing to bus, sacrifice the close, get it cheap and get it clean.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, if you find a place that has 3 elements, good for you.
Yeah, I didn't find it personally. What I did, we found one that was cheap and it was close. So what does that mean? Wasn't the cleanest.
Okay, and then the next thing that is super big is ensuite laundry. So going back to my first point, or the point that I mentioned previously, that you have to pick between renting from property management companies or individual landlords. So property management companies that manage big high-rise buildings, they normally accommodate hundreds of residents, and normally those high-rise buildings do have laundry on site. Going back to second year, so I rented from an individual landlord. So we lived in a house, me and my roommate, but there was no ensuite laundry. So what we did, we collected all of our laundry for that's 1 week's worth of laundry, and we carried it in our suitcase, got to the bus, and actually went to one of the residences on campus to get our clothes cleaned, because we didn't want to go to a laundromat.
Right, and you didn't have a car either.
Yeah, it was a pain.
It's a pain, especially if you have winter. You don't want to drag 1 week's worth of laundry into some place, or like even bike your laundry over it. Yeah. Get ensuite laundry. Always remember though, for extra amenities, especially ensuite laundry, you're looking at $100 to $200 more per month in Ontario, Canada.
Yeah, and I think laundry on site is better than nothing for sure. You just have to be okay with using the same washing machine with hundreds of different people.
Hundreds of different people. All right, let's talk about rent. I just talked a little bit about the trilemma. What should you as a student pay for rent? Well, it's going to be directly based on how much income you have, or how much, access to money that you have. I would argue that in terms of student living, this is basically the only time you get a pass for, living in some sketch place. If you were like me, I didn't have a lot of money, and I was helping pay the bills for other things. But if you're like me, honestly, look at units that involve basements. They normally go for cheaper, right? So that's a perfectly good option if you're money conscious like I was. I saved a lot of money. What I paid in rent, you would never see it again. It's like I was paying $380. Other things when it comes to rent is you're never gonna get this money back again. And so don't go for the most luxury ones unless that's how you live and you're really like some millionaire or billionaire. But for most students, if you know that you want to allocate more of your funds into like food, if you know you're going to want to go out more, if you're more sporadic, then remember that you should try to keep your rent low. But the other thing I mentioned is if you really are willing to bus and you don't mind not being on campus for the duration, then live a little bit further. Emily and I, what we do is we actually advise students to really explore the cities they're in, especially if you're coming out of town. Really dig into the city. Life in university shouldn't always be 100% about university. I mean, you're there to learn, and if you're there to learn, you can certainly learn off campus and really explore the city that you're in and invest there and make that a part of your university so you have a more holistic approach.
Guys, we're gonna be releasing more videos specifically about transitioning from first year to second year, so stay tuned. And we're hoping that you can share with us your experience. Did things that we mentioned apply to you if you're in upper years, or how have they been different for you?
And so stay tuned, subscribe to our channel to get notifications, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.